Let's talk about something we've all been through: defeat, setbacks, those moments that really test us. Today, we're going on a bit of a journey, a deep dive into how to turn those painful moments into our biggest strengths. Hey, I'm Tasnim Hassan, and I'm on this mission, really, to understand the Holy Quran not just as something we read, but as a real, practical guide for our everyday lives. So I want to invite you to come along with me on this journey as we try to become better versions of ourselves with the best guidance possible. I mean, really think about it for a second. That project you stayed up all night for, a goal you worked towards for months, maybe even years, that feeling, that sinking gut punch feeling when it all just falls apart. It's tough. And it's something every single one of us goes through. That's exactly where we're starting today. But what if I told you that moment wasn't meant to break you? What if that feeling of defeat was actually designed to build you up? That maybe, just maybe, it's a divinely engineered chance for us to get stronger, to get purified. That's the big idea we're going to unpack together. So, where do we even begin? Well, it all starts with facing that defeat head on. You can't build strength if you're not honest about the challenge in front of you. Every journey worth taking is going to have these moments. The real secret is knowing what to do when they show up. And the wisdom we're tapping into for this, it comes from an incredible source, Surah Al-e-Imran. We're zooming in on a specific part that is, for all intents and purposes, a timeless playbook for leadership and resilience. It literally gives us the anatomy of a defeat. And here's what's so powerful about it. This isn't just a list of motivational quotes or tips. Nope. It is a complete, step-by-step psychological and spiritual framework for turning any kind of setback into real, lasting strength. So, how does it work? How do we do it? Well, this divine guide breaks the whole thing down into a really simple, really memorable 3-step recovery plan. It's a plan that works for you personally, for your team at work, for any group effort you're a part of. It's this simple. First, you have to process the real pain of what happened. Second, you analyze the actions that led to it, but without the blame game. And third, you rebuild your mission, your team, with compassion. So let's break down each one of these stages. All right, stage 1. And honestly, this is the one we almost always try to skip. Before you can fix anything or analyze what went wrong, you have to sit with the emotional fallout. The guide is telling us that your pain is real, it's valid, but it can't be where you get stuck. And this brings us to this absolutely beautiful concept called tamhis. Think of it like a goldsmith using fire to purify gold. The trial, the setback, that's the fire. It feels intense, right? But its purpose is to act as a filter, to burn away the impurities, our ego, our weaknesses, our bad habits. And what's left behind is stronger, purer, and more resilient. So here's the key takeaway for this stage. You have to let yourself feel the grief, but in a healthy way. Then, you actively reframe it. This wasn't a failure. It was tahir's. It was purification. And finally, you zoom out and get some perspective. Remember that good days and bad days, they happen to everyone. You're not the only one going through this. Now, once you've made that space for the emotion, you can move into stage 2. When that initial storm is calmed down a bit, it's time for a clear-eyed, totally honest review. And this is not about pointing fingers or blaming people. It's about getting to the root of what actually happened. One of the huge lessons from this section is about the danger of leaving your post. Imagine you're on a super important team project, right? But then this other shiny, new thing pops up that promises a quick, easy win. If you abandon your main responsibility for that short-term prize, that's a classic recipe for disaster. The lesson here is crystal clear. Maintain your post, stay disciplined, and fight that urge for instant gratification. And this analysis forces us to ask a really tough question. Are we building a movement or a fan club? Is this all about one person? Because a truly resilient organization, a truly resilient cause, has to be centered on the mission. It has to be built on principles and systems that can survive even if a key person leaves. The mission has to be bigger than any one of us. Okay, now for the final part of this active recovery, rebuilding. This is where real leadership comes to life. You know, after a big team failure, the gut instinct for a lot of leaders is to get tough, to crack down. But the divine guidance here tells us to do the exact opposite. I mean, just listen to that. Be gentle in speech and soft in heart. This is an absolute masterclass in emotional intelligence. Think about it. When your team is at its most fragile, when everyone is feeling down and disappointed, a leader's softness, their gentle approach, that's the glue that's going to hold everybody together and keep them from just walking away. So what does that actually look like day to day? First, you consult your team. You bring them into the conversation and make them part of the solution. Second, you lead with that leniency, that softness we just talked about. And third, you make a conscious choice to forgive the mistakes and move on with conviction. You can't let what happened yesterday hold tomorrow hostage. Now, holding all three of these steps together, supporting this whole process, is one final, absolutely essential principle. It's the spiritual bedrock that makes all of this possible. And that foundation is trust. And we're talking about the concept of tawakkul. Let's be really clear about what this means. This is not passive wishing. It is not just sitting back and hoping for the best. No way. It is the active, powerful trust you put in God's plan after you have done everything you possibly could, after you've processed the pain, analyzed the actions, rebuilt with compassion, consulted everyone, and made a firm decision. Then, and only then, you let go and trust the outcome. All right, let's bring this all home. We've just walked through the anatomy of a defeat. And what we found? Well, it's actually a blueprint for building resilience that is just about unbreakable.
So here it is, your resilience toolkit, a 4-step framework you can start using for any setback in your life, literally today. Process the pain, seeing it as purification. Analyze what happened without any blame. Rebuild your team and your mission with compassion. And finally, after you've given it your absolute all, practice that active trust in the final outcome. So I want to leave you with this question. Think about a setback you're dealing with right now, or maybe one from the past that still kind of stings. Using this framework we just talked about, how can you start to see it differently? Not as a failure, but as a critical turning point on your path to becoming stronger. And hey, if this explainer added some real value to your life, if it was helpful for you on your journey, please take a moment to share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment or a like. It really does help us reach more people. Let's keep building this resilience together. Thanks so much for joining me.